good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first live stream of the week. So I hope this one finds you all well and dandy. And we've got a lot to talk about tonight. But before we get to that, there's always a little preamble. So we're going to chat. This is what I need you folks to do. If you're watching this on Facebook, share and like it, please. If you're on YouTube, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure you get the alerts. If you do those two things, that's important. If you want to find my other social media links, because I do stuff on different channels, you'll find them all below in the descriptions. So check that out. And if you like what we're hearing, give us a big thumbs up. And if you don't, then just don't, right? And then finally, if you feel generous and so inclined, you can always go over to altnewsmedia.net/donate and drop £1 or £2 into the hat if you want. And last but not least, of course, if you want to get yourself noticed, do make sure you engage. There's super chats for you. So if you hit those, then I get to see things a bit easier. So I'm about to bring on my fellow guest, and I'm watching her in the background. So without further ado, let me bring on my normal, very special guest on Monday night. It's Rebecca Butler. And friend.
And Skipper. I thought I'd just introduce Skipper to the stream tonight, just so you know what's going on in the background. This is the noise that you will hear, no doubt. But I'm going to put him down and hope that he is welcome to the stream by everybody. He's certainly appeared on Facebook and Twitter this week. So this is Skipper, everybody. And he's a little monkey, frankly, and he bites me all the time. So there we go. That's Skipper.
I have to say, he looks super cute, actually. And very welcome, Skipper, to the stream, by the way. It's good to have canine representation here because we're a very diverse platform, and of course we welcome creatures of all kinds. But anyway, that's very good. So Rebecca, so as always, folks, I see you joining there. Hello to all of you folks, by the way. You know, Rebecca and I do talk about what we're going to talk about on a Monday evening, and you know, sometimes there are things that really I don't want to talk about, and sometimes Rebecca doesn't want to talk about them either. But there's one story, and it's absolutely dominating the news agenda, and I think both of us would rather not really engage on it, but we have to because it's just so big. And of course, I'm talking about John and Yoko, or if you prefer, Harry and Meghan. And I mean, the obviously the interview that's taken place on US TV, and which on Oprah, and I believe Rebecca, I think it's on ITV tonight. I think I won't be watching. Will you?
Yeah, actually, I will watch it because I've got to find some fodder for tomorrow morning's social media. So yes, I will definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, as I say, I mean, I've ignored this pair, broadly speaking, for the last couple of years. I sometimes think, you know, I'm not really interested in other people's, dramas. Got enough other things to talk about. But in this case, I mean, even I've been surprised, Rebecca. The media coverage today has been off the scale.
Yeah, it has. And, you know, like you, I actually don't care. I really don't care. The monarchy, I quite like the monarchy. I wouldn't have it any other way. But do I care what they think or do? No, because they don't care what I think or do. Do they affect my daily life? No. But when it's in your face all the time, I just get irritated by it. I think they should be seen and not heard. And, what do they really do? You know, they sponsor charities, which puts up the chief executive's salary quite significantly. You know what? Cutting ribbons and opening things. To me, this concept of what duty is a little bit misaligned. I mean, you know, the Queen did her bit in the war, but what do the royals really do?
Hey, Rebecca, are you a Are you a Republican at heart? Is this a guilty secret we have to get out of you?
Well, no, I don't think I am, because because the sort of the sentimental side of me enjoys the pomp and the ceremony.
Yeah.
I don't give a damn. I really don't give a damn. And they fund themselves? Yeah, pretty much they do. I mean, they're very wealthy in their own right, and wealth makes wealth. So I don't, it's not like Henry VIII is whipping all our taxes away. So I think they fund themselves. That's fine. I've actually met the Duke of Edinburgh 3 times now, and I thought he was just complete hoot.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, I've sailed with Princess Anne. Great normal people, and never met Brenda, but why would I? Don't really care about William and Kate, although they kind of do the right things. They shut up and just get on with it. But these two, Harry and Meghan, they're just like a little tornado, all of their own making, and they're just surrounded by drama. They can't resist the drama.
Well, let's start to talk about this then, because you've keyed it up very nicely there, Rebecca. I wanted to bring up, first of all, to put all this in context, folks, this pair, we need to talk about them, unfortunately. So if we can just bring up this first slide, Rebecca. And you may remember this, that it's not so long ago since Meghan and Harry told us they were stepping away from it all. They just were seeking, I think, obscurity in Canada, which is a pretty good place to go to be obscure, actually. They were seeking their to get away from it all, to stepping away from royal life. So obviously, what you do, if you're seeking to get that degree of privacy into your life, what the natural thing to do is, Rebecca, you go on Oprah. Because it makes sense, doesn't it? It's logical. You want privacy, so you expose your life and your family and all those family members to the scrutiny of a massive global TV program, which is what's happened today.
Yeah, I mean, they are victims of never having been able to express themselves, which is complete tripe. They've always expressed themselves. They've always been quite contrary, which is fine. We don't mind contrary people. But yeah, it just doesn't sit that they're exposing themselves to the American paparazzi. And let's not forget, this interview was all about an American audience. This is not a British audience. And, maybe you were going to come on to this, but what this has done for relations between us and America, I think, is quite damaging, because I've seen a lot of the chat around it on the major networks, and they're saying this just shows how racist the British are. No, we're not. It's just, we gave them a £36 million wedding. We celebrated Meghan. She had no more adverse publicity than Kate Middleton did. And she had as much, positive publicity. And, I was quite shocked when she did that Tom Bradby interview in South Africa, with the hordes of poor people behind her saying, woe is me, nobody reached out to me because I was pregnant. Well, get over yourself, love. I had a full-time job when I was pregnant. So what? You're healthy. So just shut up and get on with it. Just stuff like that. It irritates me.
The thing is, Rebecca, the point you make about dividing between the UK and the US, it's an interesting one, because I think this kind of cloying, uber narcissistic type of interview, it goes down pretty well amongst some people, a certain strata in the US. I mean, it's kind of some of the stuff that those who watch Oprah, they lap it up. And I noticed the White House, in an interesting statement, they did comment on it. A comment was made by the Circle Back kid, what's her name, the press secretary, and I mean, she was sort of saying, something like, we kind of, very, very brave and courageous of the princess to speak out in the way that she did. I don't think there's anything brave at all. I think this is, as we said earlier today, this is uber narcissism. Like, it really, really is. And for me, Rebecca, one of the worst bits is that, you know, the two big charges against the British royal family today are, number one, that at least one person within it is racist. And you know, so that's the first thing. And secondly, the uncaring of, because she claims to have had suicidal urges. So those are the two big claims. And I think it's outrageous that she should, you know, if you like, sort of accuse someone in the royal family. She didn't say it was male or female. She didn't give anything away like that. But she alleged something, which is a pretty damaging allegation. And she doesn't, since the person is unnamed, we don't know, we can't comment. But the doubt is now there, isn't it? I thought that was pretty appalling. Name them, Meghan. If you think that, tell us who they are, and you know, then we can talk to them and they can decide.
Well, I thought actually Harry's comments were even more egregious than that, because he said somebody, but I'm not prepared to say who, referred to the colour of our children. So this is pre-Archie, but, you know, in anticipation of having children, somebody, but I don't want to refer any of the details of it. Somebody said it. Well, you know, it's the same point. All of this unsubstantiated, I'm not prepared to say, but I'm going to sit on a sofa and pretend to say.
Yeah.
It's just like, what really struck me though, David, is, you know, talking in wokey language now, which is, I think you fight fire with fire. She has gaslighted her victims of bullying.
Yes.
Totally gaslighted them. You know, anybody who talks out about Meghan gets gaslighted, and Harry. He's as bad. They are so well suited to each other. But
they are. Yeah.
They've done gaslighting, and nobody's called them out on it. I think that's shocking. Is to say, well, I'm a victim of bullying, so you can't accuse me of bullying. Well, what is your bullying, Meghan? Who bullied you? What does bullying mean, and who bullied you? Did somebody stand there and shout at you and demean you in the way you did to your staff? Come on.
Yeah, that's right. Because, I mean, I think, Rebecca, I think 5 members of her staff, or former members of staff, did come out and say she'd behaved pretty intolerably towards them. Now, we don't know if that's, you know, right or wrong, and maybe they're right and maybe it isn't. But as you say, she's quite happy then to accuse other people of bullying. And the other thing, actually, here's something I wanted to say to the stream and to get it out there. This whole thing about the racism and about the kid, Archie's, what would the skin color be of the child? You know, Meghan's not black. Just putting it out there, she is not black. I'm sick of the way some of these people, actually, they culturally misappropriate. Do you not agree? I mean, color means nothing to me. As you and I have chatted about this so often, Rebecca, neither of us are in the least concerned about color. But I get a bit annoyed about this whole thing. Oh, well, Meghan, she's a person of color. Well, you know, I mean, she didn't look that colourful to me. But anyway, what do you think?
If she's black and proud of being black, somebody tells her she straightens her hair and refers to herself on job applications as Caucasian. So she's half Caucasian and half black. And actually, I don't even know if she's half black or quarter black. I'm not really sure. But you know, but fine, perfectly fine by me. If you want to say, well, I identify as half of my genes, that's okay by me. But then be that person, be the black person, be proud of being the black person. And I've had this discussion with you before. Black hair is a really, really big issue with black women. And it's all about not straightening your hair, but leaving those afro curls natural. It's a really big point. Actually, a lot of girls do get bullied. Black girls get bullied because of their hair. I've actually dealt with a couple of cases in the Free Speech Union over this. People making derogatory comments about the hair. The hair is a very sensitive issue here. believe it or not.
Yeah.
And so why isn't she black when it comes to her hair? I mean, I always think about, as you say, which bit is she culturally appropriating at the point where it's convenient? Because I honestly think that people who are, you know, I don't know what you call them now. I don't know what the appropriate term is, but you know, mixed race, or in India, they're still called half caste, or Anglo-Indian is a perfectly normal term to use to describe people who are half and half. You know, I've never heard an Anglo-Indian say, I'm Indian or I'm English. They've always been quite proud to say, I'm Anglo-Indian, I'm a half caste. So there's like a pride in your identity of being something special. But Meghan has rejected her father wholesale, we know that. And she's rejected half of her genetic heritage.
I
She
know.
was quite happy to dump him over the wedding, remember? Not made any effort to see him. He lives in LA. He's in LA.
Yeah, and the thing is, actually, I believe I was reading just before again we came on air, Rebecca. Apparently, her father is coming on to Good Morning Britain or whatever it is with Piers Morgan tomorrow morning. Now, I don't normally agree with Piers Morgan. I've got so many issues with him, but on this one, I have to say, I think he's pretty spot on. I don't know what you think. I mean, he's no fan of Meghan and Harry.
The only thing I would say that he was a little bit insensitive about was the mental health stuff, because we don't actually know, and you know,
true.
That's true. Can I also say something here, though? Is that there's a little part of me that looks at this story and thinks, you know, William groomed Kate Middleton for a place in the royal family over the course of 10 years, and Kate Middleton was ready to join the royal family. It's quite a dysfunctional, abnormal way of life. It's quite sort of artificial, I think, the relationships you have with people and the formality behind the relationships you have. But Kate Middleton was groomed for that. And I think the falling out between Harry and William was very much about William saying, hold fire, mate, you know, don't do it too quickly, because it's a big ask. And you know, she wasn't an 18-year-old Kate Middleton. She was a 33, 34-year-old woman. She'd been married, no doubt had any number of relationships, had a career. Whether you thought the career was good or not is neither here nor there. I didn't know who she was, but I did watch Suits, and I thought, yeah, she's pretty good in that. You know, fine, pretty girl. Okay. Realized she'd done some stuff about UN women and all of that. All great. How difficult it must have been to be with a thicko like Harry all day. That must be as dull as ditch water. And then just have to go around and cut ribbons for a living. I just don't think she was prepared for royal life. And so to go off to the States is entirely understandable. All of that we all get. But then just shut up, please. Go away.
I would like to see them stripped of their royal titles. I'll be blunt on it, because you know all those things you've just said are 100% true. I think the other thing to add, Rebecca, is though that part of the price of being in the firm, in the family, is that you do shut up. The very point you've made several times, you just have to accept that that's kind of the way it works. And so because of that, if you're not prepared to do that, then you're not playing by the rules. And therefore, you know, a lot of, I think she's brought it all on herself. I mean, Jed makes the point here. He says she's a second-rate actress at best. I've got to say, Rebecca, I never watched Suits. I can't say I was one of the ones I tuned into, but I'm not sure, Jed, if she is of her acting abilities. I actually think she was acting on that day of her wedding at Westminster. I suspect there was a degree of acting about that. But I don't know. Look, the thing about this, Rebecca, is, you know, the path of true love and all that never runs smooth. And so I don't want to be mean and nasty, particularly to them. I do think they've damaged the royal family, certainly in the last 24 hours and the next number of days, I think, because can the Queen, Her Majesty, they cannot rebut this formally, can they? No,
they can't. And you know what? Harry is as much to blame. Now, they have weaponized in a really egregious way. They've weaponized his mother's death. And they have weaponized Archie because they're now saying that he was denied a HRH title. Now, I thought at the time that Harry said we don't want him to have a title. I may be wrong on that, and there's somebody on the street may know, but I seem to recall them saying they didn't want him to have a title, a bit like Edward and Sophie and Princess Anne, because they wanted their to be able to step back. I think everybody always thought that Prince Andrew was a little bit pushy with his own daughters, and he's always pushed their agenda.
Yes, he did.
As HRHs. And I think the precedent of Edward and Sophie and Princess Anne all saying no HRH, thank you very much. We don't want to ruin their lives. But now they're saying, well, we were denied the opportunity to ruin their lives with an HRH title, for Archie as it was when he was born. So there's something, but, Harry's just said this as though it's fact and nobody can rebut it. But frankly, we all know Buckingham Palace will say nothing. And that is the best thing, is don't give
100%.
them
Yeah.
Just shut up. It'll go away.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's the one. I mean, at the end of the day, this will not end well for Harry and Meghan. It doesn't matter about the media, the acres of media coverage you're getting. It won't end well. The other thing I thought was really quite pathetic from Harry was he said that his father, after a couple of 2 phone calls, I think, his father wouldn't return 2 phone calls. Right now, Harry's 30. He's a 36-year-old man. And his dad doesn't return. I mean, what age is he? 15. I thought that was pathetic. I mean, in some ways, he's every bit as bad. I mean, they are well paired, aren't they? Because he's as bad as she is.
Oh yeah. I mean, if my kids don't call me, I just think, good, they're not after my money. It's just a good sign if they don't answer my phone calls. But but they're all dysfunctional. They live in a dysfunctional world. They live in a gilded cage. None of us would want to be a royal. It's such an awful life because there's so much wealth, it's meaningless. And actually, I've been to Buckingham Palace, and it's actually a bit of a tip. It's, wallpaper hanging off the walls. It's not like Ceausescu's palace or anything like that. They're all just custodians of money and vast amounts of it. But I wouldn't want their life. And so I thought that's what Meghan and Harry were moving away from. But it turns out, actually, they resent the fact that they can't have that life. But they want their cake and eat it and dictate the colour of icing and what sort of cherries are going to be on top. Institutions that have been around for hundreds of years don't tend to operate like that. It's not about an individual. It's about the institution.
I saw a couple of memes on Twitter. I don't know if we've got one in the slides coming up, but Twitter's always quite good fun when you read this kind of stuff. And the memes have been mighty, Rebecca. The best one that I saw, it was one of two split screen. One side you've got John and Yoko, the other one you've got Harry and Meghan. On the John and Yoko one, you've got Yoko saying, I split up the Beatles, and on the Harry and Meghan one, it's Meghan saying, "Hold my beer." I thought that was great. I thought, Twitter, Twitter got that one absolutely right. And the other thing I saw, Rebecca, and this is mean, but it did make me chuckle. If you think this is bad, just wait till we get to the divorce.
Well, if there has been all this mental health issues, I think actually Harry probably is quite vulnerable. I wasn't aware that she was, but I can understand they are. If you think about it, big marriage, problems, or problems from the word go, problems with staff, problems with settling in, moving of houses, all sorts of briefings here and there, move to Canada, break up from the firm, didn't get the settlement they wanted from the Queen. And they didn't get the settlement that they wanted from the Queen, move then to California, this interview, 2 pregnancies, a miscarriage. These are huge stresses for a marriage, never mind.
Yeah. As I say, Rebecca, it's worth 1,000 words. I think the thing is, I hope this pleases our American viewers.
I think our Trump supporter friends will sympathize with us and will see this for what it is. I'm afraid that the lib wokey Democrats, they're going to get this and they're going to jump on us because they've had so much criticism for being so racist in America. That how gift do they need then to just turn the guns on us? And some of her friends who are actors, so obviously they're really well informed and well educated, have come out and in commentary about how racist the royal family's always been, and some very, very, very unpleasant comments from her friends. So it's totally appropriate. And you know what? Revenge is a dish best served freezing cold, and their day will come for sure.
I think we'll sort of wrap this one up now in a minute or two. But the people I feel probably sorriest for is I really feel sorry for the Queen and Prince Philip. I mean, there's Prince Philip, and he's obviously been seriously unwell. Yeah, and coming 100 years old, so he's well on. He's quite an age, and Her Majesty 94. And for them, and at this time, to have to put up with this sort of crap, if you'll pardon my language, I just find that, and I think a lot of Brits think like that. Like I have my criticisms of the royal family as well, Rebecca. I am by no means a blue-eyed, white-eyed monarchist either. But I just also think the way this has been handled by Harry and Meghan, it's kind of venomous, is the word I think, and hurtful to Her Majesty and Prince Philip.
It's unnecessary. What is it going to achieve? There can be no good outcome from this. It's not going to be a positive.
No, I agree.
So why do it? Why?
Yeah, because there can't really be a reconciliation. I don't think she wants a reconciliation at all. And I mean, the sight of a billionairess in the form of Oprah talking to 2 millionaires and bemoaning their life, to the ordinary people in the States, in the UK and elsewhere, it just is just a massive indulge fest. But anyway, there we are. I think we hopefully we won't be sent to the Tower after this, Rebecca, or we should.
I just like to say that the media does enjoy this sort of thing, very much stoking the flames. But I would really have preferred if the media took on the cause of, say, our soldiers in inadequate uniforms or inadequate armored vehicles during the Iraq War, where they were getting blown up by IEDs because of inadequate equipment. I'd like the media to make more of a deal about PPE and more of a deal about, 650 healthcare and social care workers have died. I'd like them to make more of an issue of that. I mean, for God's sake, whether you like it or not, there's a lockdown at the moment. The economy's tanking. That should be front news on every single paper, not frickin' Meghan and Harry. Who cares? Who cares? There's so many more important things.
I think, Rebecca, just looking at the comments in the stream, I think what you're saying is widely reflected in what other people say as well. It's a combination of a couple of narcissists and then a media that just loves the loves all the attention that this kind of story brings. But by and large, I feel I may have to go and have a shower after this. I haven't even talked about them because I don't feel that great about it. So anyway, okay, I think we're all in agreement. I think broadly speaking, the stream is pretty much in agreement. So we all agree that they are horrible narcissists. But
yes. Time to disagree. Move on.
Yeah, let's disagree about something. Right. Let's move on to the next one. Let's bring up the slide. Go on, Rebecca. Let's have an argument. So, the NHS, Nurses Union, are preparing for strike action over a risible 1% pay increase offer. And we all saw this at the weekend, or I think it was Saturday, Rebecca, something like that. Hancock. And it was actually in Rishi's statement. I think actually it was hidden. It was hidden. Budget, wasn't it? It was hidden. It was so much that they were given 1% to, well, I'm going to say the NHS, generally speaking. Anyway, the Royal College of Nursing came out outraged about this. They wanted a mere 12.5%, which is certainly novel thinking. And I suppose to set this one up so we can discuss it, my view, and I actually did say this on a video I did. I have to say, Rebecca, I do respect those who work in the NHS, nurses, doctors. I even have to put my hand up. I know some of the senior management because they're my kind of age and they've been in it for 30 years and you know how it works. So I do respect many people in the NHS. However, here's the but. I don't think there should be any salary increase in the way that's being talked about anyway. Because if there was a 1%, that would go across the entire NHS, wouldn't it, Rebecca?
Yeah, it would. And so I don't agree with it either, by the way.
Which all right, we'll have to find something else to argue about then.
Disagree with. But I mean, look, this is my view on it. Since 2008, the private sector has fallen back quite significantly against public sector because private sector never get the working, they never get pension rights the way public sector workers do. They never get employment rights. They have minimal sickness, maternity. They tend not to get long service pay. They tend to have disruptive employment patterns where, their companies get taken over and they don't have continuity of rights. There are so many things that happen in the private sector which are damaging to pay and conditions. Now, I have worked in corporate as a barrister, and I saw the way people worked. There's, private sector, people work jolly hard. The private sector is every shopkeeper who opens at 6 in the morning and doesn't shut till 11 at night. It's news agents, it's small businesses, it's factories. It's a huge thing, and the private sector has not kept up with wage increase. It hasn't kept up with inflation even. Whereas ever since 2008, nurses have had protected wage rises. They are now just at the end of a 3% pay rise. Now, bearing in mind that we are almost deflationary on our economy, they have real time, in real terms, pay rises, and they have guaranteed pay rises every year. A lot of people don't know this, but nurses are graded. So you are banded according to your qualifications. So I don't know what the banding is now, because it used to be letters in my day, but it's numbers now. But band 5 is the one to look at, because that's like the entry level for staff nurses. So so you can be like a staff nurse on a ward, a starter staff nurse. You can be that grade for 5 or 6 years, and your band goes from the basic year 1. You then proceed through the band. So your year 5 of band 5, frankly, why haven't you become band 6? But sometimes, even if you go up to band 6, the bottom of band 6 is lower than the top of band 5. So they get incremental pay increases every year anyway, based on experience. You also get enhanced holiday rights based on your year's service. But I mean, that is 14 years. But so they get a pay rise anyway every year. So they're asking for a double pay rise. Now, since 2017, Band 5 has already had 12.5% pay rise. A lot of people don't know that. They've already had it. And the rest of the nursing bands, so that deals with the majority, the sort of the junior staff nurses. When you then get to a senior staff nurse, you then go up to another level. Then you become a sister, then you become a senior sister, then you become a nursing officer, and then you become a chief nursing officer. And when I was the chief nursing officer for Wessex, I was earning more than my husband, who was a junior doctor. Arguably, he had a lot more responsibility for patient welfare than I did because he's an anaesthetist. But, you know, the nursing pay for people who progress through is actually quite generous. The career progression is guaranteed because every year you get more money just by virtue of sitting there. So
being there, no. Well, we've got a couple of slides. I wanted to bring them up. I've been just to reinforce really what you're saying, Rebecca. We just flip this one up. This puts, I guess, salaries in kind of overall generic perspective. And whilst we have people like dentists there on 72 grand a year, and then down at the bottom end we've got
dentists.
But anyway, I think what we're saying there is that this brings it up a bit bigger. You can see different levels of salary, and it's averages, which doesn't mean an awful lot. But basically, nurses there on 31 average a year. All that means is that they're doing okay. Plus the things you said. In actual fact, Rebecca, the next slide, if you have a look at this, if we just can bring up the next one. And again, with your expertise from within, Rebecca, these are some kind of salaries that I've seen, which I believe are published by the NHS. So, head of nursing on 85k. You can see the titles there, Rebecca.
This is not right, because ICU nurse would never be at the same level as a registered nurse, because this is all wrong. So, because a registered nurse at 31,000 a year is a starting salary for a staff nurse, and it wouldn't go down to 29. You're looking at 33 as a senior staff nurse. If you're on ICU, you've not just started. You wouldn't be allowed on ICU as a starter nurse. So, registered nurse goes in at 31. An ICU nurse will be at 33, 34 minimum starting.
So that actually makes the point even more. In every instance, all things considered, they are paid well. I also actually saw another stat, Rebecca, which says that in terms of the bands, something like only something like about 84% of staff are at the very top end of a given band. They're all up there. I mean, and I know this for myself from family who work in the NHS, that because of the fact if you're there enough years, you just go up, and you go up pretty quickly to the top of your band. So what I found bad about this one was that there's been a narrative that we're all in it together over this past very difficult year, and there's loads of folks in the private sector who have lost their jobs on 20%, had effective 20% cut in salary, sitting at home. Life's not been good for a lot of those, for a lot of those people, and yeah, a lot of them were out clapping the NHS. A lot of them felt they should sacrifice to protect the NHS. I don't agree with them, by the way, as you know, but those folks were doing that. And it's a bit of a slap in the face when we have militant nursing unions basically saying, we're going to go and strike if we don't get what we want. I mean, that's hard to take, isn't it?
Well, Donna Kinnear is not somebody I'm a fan of anyway. I thought she behaved appallingly throughout this pandemic. Interestingly, on some of the Facebook groups I look at, people know that I have gone back to nursing, so I'm sort of recognized as a returner. And, a lot of stuff about this 1% being derisory and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, actually, I'm sorry, but we're in dire straits, and if there's money available, it has to go to the NHS. It doesn't have to go to the NHS wage packets in order for services to recover. In order to now reduce our waiting lists, we need an injection of money, and it shouldn't go to staff costs. I really, really believe that. And this one nurse got back to me. She said, but don't you think it's disgraceful that a lot of nurses had inadequate PPE? And I said, yeah, I do think it's disgraceful that they had inadequate PPE, but in terms of causation, so what? Okay, PPE was inadequate, but are you saying they got coronavirus and died because of inadequate PPE? Or are you just saying it was just badly handled? Because either way, I use the example of our troops in Iraq, and I said, well, look, our soldiers had inadequate equipment, but the answer is not to pay the soldiers more. The answer is to get the equipment right. Is your best argument PPE? Because, I mean, you can't do this publicly. I can say it on this sort of stream where, people do listen to what you say. A lot of nurses weren't on the front line of COVID. A lot of outpatient nurses furloughed because there was no outpatient activity. So they weren't on the coronavirus facing front line, and they've lived off the ICU nurses and the A&E nurses were on the front line.
Yeah, agreed.
That's where the proper PPE went, was based on what level of contact you were going to have with the virus anyway. And by the way, because they're young, most of them got it, like my daughter, they got it back in March, April last year before it was controllable. And, they're fine. They're young. We all know the numbers for young people. Most nurses are under 40, unless they had a comorbidity. It was no different for them than getting the flu. So I'm sorry. It just doesn't wash with me that where people have lost their jobs over the pandemic, people have lost businesses, people have lost family. There have been massive privation. I'm sorry, the first thing you don't do is give people wage rises. Really, I'm surprised they got anything, but 1%, really, they should be happy with it. And I really think that if we are in all this together, then let's just be really honest about how crap the NHS is, which I've always said. It's a sclerotic institution, which really needs a good shake-up, and find your own cost savings if you want to fund staff wage increases. You find the money to fund it.
Well, I think as Jed makes a point in the stream here, Rebecca, I mean, this is the unions holding the country to ransom. And I don't know what you thought, but I saw the risible Sir Keir Starmer's response to this. And I did a short take in this. The fact that he thinks that the entire public, I mean, I'm not sure what planet he labours on, but they want the entire public sector, not just the NHS, to get a pay increase. And we've all seen the country's finances. And to be fair to the government, which I've got huge issues with, but to be fair, this is not the time to do this. It's completely wrong. So I think the nursing unions and the BMA, for that matter, who are all hustling in this one, should be ashamed of themselves. If we're all in it together, then either we are or we're not. And by the way, NHS staff in general enjoyed significant discounts from certain supermarket chains, which I won't mention on the stream, but they were giving them discounts. And okay, that's fine if that's what they wanted to do. But generally speaking, the NHS workers have had a good war, a good COVID war, not minimizing obviously the dangers and stuff like that. So for them to come back at it like this and bite the nation, because it's our taxes, Rebecca, that's funding it. Money does not come from money trees, contrary to what Labour think. And so I think that they've done themselves. The unions have just demonstrated their hopelessness. Labour have demonstrated their hopelessness, and the government, on this one, I mean, they were damned if they do and damned if they don't. My only annoyance is, I'll tell you now, Boris will compromise. They'll get a couple of percent, and maybe get 2% or something. I bet.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't, because, you know, another thing that people might not know is that when coronavirus first kicked off, you know, it's a year ago now, believe it or not,
Yeah.
nurses were issued with, in fact, all carers, so nurses and healthcare assistants, they were issued with forms to self-certify as at risk. And if they felt they were at risk of coronavirus, then they self-furloughed. So a lot of nurses didn't even go to work because they self-certified as at risk. And that could be, sorry for saying this, by being fat.
Yeah, it could. Very likely.
So rather than getting thinner by losing weight and staying at work and supporting your colleagues, they were just at home on furlough because they were fat. I mean, that is how stupid NHS management is. And, you know, I've spent my life criticizing the NHS. I really have. And they're no angels. They really aren't. It is a job. You are trained to do the job. You do the job. If it gets a bit gnarly, go to a specialty that doesn't get gnarly if you can't bear it, or leave. Don't expect constant bloody angel status, because I wasn't an angel. I was just good at my job, but I wasn't an angel, and I don't want to be thought of as an angel. And by the way, do angels go on strike?
Well, these ones do. Well, not all of them. Again, because it's probably wrong to generalize, but I mean, yeah, certainly the unions aren't winning anyone's favors in this one at all. I think Boris will compromise, like you, and give them more. I wish he wouldn't. I really wish he wouldn't. But the media is driving the narrative very strong. I mean, actually, the one good thing about Meghan and Harry is, Rebecca, it maybe takes a wee bit of headlines away from, you know, our angels are being starved because they can't get an increase that the rest of the country doesn't get. But anyway, the NHS will continue to. I thought we might have argued more about this one. Okay, we'll try and argue more about the next one then, if that's the case. Right. Bring up the. So today, Rebecca, is an auspicious day in the year, and of course, for those in the stream who may not know that, because not all of you follow international days like I do, I wonder, can we just bring up the next slide, please? Yes. You see, folks, today is International Women's Day. And you see, Rebecca, I'm so engaged in all these things. These United Nations days, so interesting to me. However, I wanted to put, and who better for me to spend this day, auspicious day, on a live stream with than you? So I put it to you, my learned friend. I reckon that by and large, women have never had it so good as they have in 2021. And life's not perfect, and there's wrongs to be righted still. But I think by and large, women have done pretty good. And you know, I'm not sure there's a lot to complain about. What say you, Rebecca Butler?
Well, I think it is better now. And I'm sort of a generation that is, I suppose, a hybrid, where when I started work, it was tough. But I was fortunate enough that I did well in nursing, so I wasn't treated badly. But I know colleagues who were, and sort of patronized by predominantly male doctors. But now over half the doctors are women, and the whole environment in the health service has improved dramatically. And then I went to the bar, and the bar is just blind on colour, on disability, on sex. So, you know, I was very, very fortunate to be a barrister, because what you'll get bollocked for is being rubbish. And if you've done something wrong, you'll get in trouble with the judge. So I think the bar is one of the most...
yeah, you've always said that. Yeah,
fantastic. And you know, I went in as a mature student as well, and that really worked in my favor. So colour, gender, age, honestly, the bar was an amazing place to work. However, some of your viewers may know that I've moved into politics, and I have to say, I've fallen out massively with Conservative Central headquarters recently. So much so that I was on the verge of giving up. I found that politicians are sexist. I found the way that they behave is they very much talk over women. Women get treated badly by the men in all the groups I watch and I'm part of. It's shocking, but then it's sort of men who maybe they're too old to know better and they don't realize that things have moved on. I don't know. I find the attitudes in politics are pretty shocking, really pretty shocking.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people, by the way, when you talk about going to the bar, I think they misunderstand the bar to which you to which you went. But yeah, again, I mean, well, there's too much harmony going on.
The tea.
There's way too much harmony going on here. So yeah, I mean, I agree with that, Rebecca. And in many spheres of business and enterprise, and indeed, different jobs, I think things are pretty decent now. And there's legislation to make sure it stays that way. And I think people, by and large, men and women in professional environments, rub along pretty well. And there's always going to be a bad apple here or there, but that works actually both ways. There's the odd bad apple man and there's the odd bad apple woman. Yeah. Politics is an interesting one, though, because I completely agree with what you say, having been there myself. And I think it's a very strange world for certain men. I also think back to Margaret Thatcher. And I think back, she rose up, the ladder in the 70s, early to mid 70s, and then to become prime minister. Looking back on it, given the attitudes towards women, that was an even more remarkable achievement, I think, Rebecca, than maybe some people understand.
Yeah, and I think Margaret Thatcher is sort of inspirational for people like me. Because she shows that you can play in a man's world. But she had to play like a man to play in a man's world. I think things have changed, but there are issues over like diversity in Parliament, for example. So I'm not in favour of all women's shortlists at all. I don't think that brings the best candidate. But what I do object to is that while everybody's shouting about diversity for ethnicity, people are forgetting that 50% of the population are women. So can we deal with getting it 50-50 on male-female and then worry within that whether we've got an 8.4% or 14% ethnic mix in Parliament? Because currently, AIM MPs have a higher representation in Parliament than women do as percentage of population. And, that also spills into transgender, because transgender activists are so outspoken. You would think that transgender and, the whatever they call it, heteronormative, binary, whatever word spaghetti they use.
Yeah.
You would think the problem was far greater than it actually is. Therefore, women's rights are being eroded. So International Women's Day, in many ways, I think I would say to men, all the men on the stream, actually, please do become a bit of a feminist, because we are under attack, and we are under attack as trans exclusionary radical feminists. We're being accused of being radical by simply saying, don't trample on our rights, respect our rights, because we don't want them in our prisons and in our public loos. Thank you.
Well, actually, Rebecca, that's a really interesting point you make, because one of the very curious things I observed today on Twitter on International Women's Day, that there were certain women, just normal, biological women, let's just call them that. Biological women were making statements of biological fact. We have to be careful how we phrase these things, but that's all it was. And they were taken down. They were taken down from Twitter. And I thought to myself, what a mixed up world we live in, that on International Women's Day, it can be dangerous to celebrate women. And I'm all for celebrating women. And I think I know what a woman is. But the world we live in is so crazy that that's being blurred, hasn't it? And I think that's a major issue actually for me. But
and this is why we need men. We've got the lesbians on side, we've got the gay men on side, and we need the heterosexual men on side as well, to say actually feminism isn't a threat to us, but we can see that actually femininity, being a woman, is under threat. It's really under threat. Look at what's happening to our sports. How can we were happy before all this stuff came and hit us, and it's hit us disproportionately. But the people who run Twitter run by a man, Google run by a man, Amazon run by a man. All the people who make the decisions on cancelling women on the social media, they're all run by men. Why aren't they standing up and saying, hang on, no, we support women and we support women's sports, and we're not going to let them have their equality eroded? It's not fair. There is space for transgender. There is space. Of course there is.
No.
Don't eat into somebody else's rights to assert your own.
Yeah, and I again, Rebecca, I think that's right. I think some people would say, well, on Twitter, actually, I see Chris Davis is pointing out, I'm not on Twitter. Well, you're so right, Chris, I'm not. But sources known to me report these things back to me, Chris. That's how I know these things. But yeah, I mean, you're right, Rebecca. It actually, there's quite an irony in the fact that in a way, whilst we've made so much progress in making life more fair, and because I believe in meritocracy, I think it doesn't matter if you're male or female, the best person, whoever it is, gets a job. That's the way it should be, and we should help where there needs to be help given and all that. I'm all for that, but it just seems to me that women are kind of in the crosshair a bit at the moment, biological women, and so on a day like this, that's kind of, so you actually, I'm sure there's lots of heterosexual men would sort of say we would very much want to see women celebrated, and we know what women are, and the fact that that's, I mean, even today, I think Biden has come out with some new legislation across in the States, or part of his, his executive order, which again it's blurring the picture, and the victims are women, not blokes. It's women that's the victims, and that's wrong.
Actually, Biden's got that wrong, because even his own, in the House of Representatives, his own Democrats have refused to sign it off. So he hasn't got away with that by executive order. That went through the House. And, it's too big an issue to be dealt with by a sort of executive. And I think it's too big an issue to be dealt with by men, because imagine if you're a lesbian, how you must feel. If you're a lesbian couple, you would be completely under the cosh if you are threatened with transgender rights sort of overcoming yours. God knows it took gay people a long, hard struggle to get where they are. And now lesbians are equally and more so in the crosshairs of celebrating. I mean, what more celebrates being a woman and feminine than lesbians? They just doesn't get better than that.
I'm not sure about that. It's a radical interpretation of feminism, but yeah, okay, I'll give you that one, sort of.
But you see lesbians very, very upset by what's happened to J.K. Rowling. All she has ever said is women need safe spaces, and she bases what she says on evidence. A number of women getting killed and abused every year. It does happen to men, but they tend not to complain about it. I know, but nevertheless. And why can't men have a safe space as well? So they should. Women should have a safe space, but physically women are vulnerable. And there are, I'm afraid, regrettably, cases where women have been put in prison with transgender women and have been raped. And
Yep.
I'm talking about sex offender transgenders have been put in women's prisons and raped women. So it's not a huge number, but identity politics has no part to play in this. It really doesn't.
No, yeah. I think the whole situation of women in a strange way is probably potentially more vulnerable, Rebecca, than arguably it has been, maybe in several decades, and arguably it could become even more darker. And you mentioned like lesbians. I see Billy Piper's teeth here is playing a drinking game. He's drinking a shot every time someone says the word lesbian. So
lesbian.
Yeah. So Billy, enjoy. But you've got people like sort of very successful female sports people like Martina Navratilova, for example, who's a lesbian, and she's spoken out against some of the ways in which female sports at professional level itself is being put in jeopardy and threat. So you're right. I mean, whether these are straight women, whether these are gay women, doesn't really matter. A lot of them do see what you see, Rebecca, which is there's this rising existential threat coming from a very tiny minority, but it seems to have gained a momentum out of all proportion.
Yeah, and one thing maybe we can talk about another time is the stuff I've done with the Free Speech Union. It has predominantly been over transgender comments, and that you're not allowed to say anything, even though there isn't actually a named victim to what you've said, and words like "he is a he, not a she," that is enough to spark an investigation and no doubt a finding that you have breached a safe space code at university and get thrown out. And I have just won a case on that at the Free Speech Union. But people aren't allowed to say anything for fear of potentially making a place not safe for everybody, which means you can't say anything. You can't say anything. So this is an attack on free speech, while it is also an attack on women, because you can't say.
I think, Rebecca, it actually might be quite interesting some evening to come on and devote a little more time to some of those cases that I know you've been to the fore in the Free Speech Union, because as always with these issues, they cut across several. They can encroach in several spaces. So it's not just women are most definitely in the target zone, but so is free speech, so is liberty, so is the right to be able to speak your mind, actually, and all these things are a concern. But the biggest concern of all is we've reached the end of our hour and gone past it. So on that note, folks, first of all, a really big thank you for spending International Women's Day night with me here on the stream, Rebecca. We appreciate that. It's really good to see you. Thanks everybody for all your comments. They get so many that it is hard to see them all, or at least I find it hard to see them all. But that's why there's super chats, so I can see them. But thanks to for those who have been on the stream. I'll be back later on the week. In the meantime, just tune into my YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, by the way. Things are growing there very fast, so do make sure you do that. And I'm just reading a few comments before I go here. Billy Pipers, I want to apologize for being late. I knew you'd be banging on about Meghan and Barry. Harry, I think you mean. Yeah, it's as I said, sometimes in the stream we just have to talk about the stuff that's dominating the news cycle, and there we go. We didn't argue actually, Rebecca, tonight. I'm very disappointed.
We'll try harder next week. But Doniquel, aloha from Hawaii, and Clover, I saw, was a new viewer, so welcome. Sometimes it gets quite heated on this as discussions go, so don't expect it to be agreement all the time, because it isn't. David and I often disagree.
Yeah, we disagree and we never fall out. That's the way I look upon it. Actually, I've got Purnima on the stream, who's actually been on the stream with me a couple of times. My friend from the States, and she makes Rebecca. This is a point you'll 100% get about women in Indian culture and whatnot. And Purnima, hope to have you back on the stream, by the way, very soon, because obviously we've even touched on tonight the fact that, you know, this Harry and Meghan interview took place in the States, and we have Sleepy Joe continuing to do all kinds of strange things. So we do need to get your perspective on it. But anyway, thanks for your time, everybody. It's always it's a pleasure to see you all and catch up with you later on in the week. That's all from me. So for me, it's good night.
And it's good night. See you next week, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Cheers.